are the music makers. We are the dreamers of dreams, wandering by lone sea breakers and sitting by desolate streams. World losers and world forsakers, upon whom the pale moon gleams. Yet we are the movers and shakers of the world forever, it seems. Yes, we are the music makers, time frozen for the duration of a song.
She was lovely and fair as the rose of the summer, yet was not her beauty alone that won me. Oh no, 'twas the truth in her eye ever dawning that made me the fairy, the rose of Tralee.
Please leave me all those endearing young charms which I gazed on so fondly today were to change by tomorrow and fleet in my arms like fairy gifts fading away.
Very well, my lovely darling, 1,000 times adieu. We are saying goodbye to the holy ground and the girls that we love true. We will sail the salt seas over and then return to shore. And still I live in hopes to see my holy ground once more. Fine girls you are.
If you ever go across the sea to Ireland, it may be at the closing of your day. You can sit and watch the moon rise over Ephrata, or see the sun go down the Galway Bay. Oh, I wish I was in Carrickfergus, only for nights in Ballygrant. Oh, I would swim over the deepest ocean, for my love to find.
I'll take you home again, Kathleen, across the ocean wild and wide, to where your heart has ever been, since first you were my bonny bride.
If you're Irish, come into the parlor. There's a welcome there for you. If your name is Timothy or Pat, as long as you come from Ireland, there's a welcome on the mat. If you come from the Mount of Mourne or Killarney's lake so blue, a singer of song will make the fuss. Whoever you are, you want a bus. If you're Irish, this is the place for you.
So all wars are merry, and all their songs are sad.
No doubt that priceless zest was offered by an Englishman.
Oh, the English, forever the judge of the rest of us. Sure did England carve out the greatest empire the world has ever known. The sun never sets on the British Empire, and didn't they do it with their military might and superior intelligence?
No,
The valor of their troops.
hardly.
The skill of their generals.
Better stiff up her lip.
No. Come on, help me here, girls.
Certainly. In order to understand the Irish, you have to understand the English. And to understand the English, you have to understand their cooking, their cuisine, if you have pardon the expression. Fish and chips, fair enough.
Bangers and mash.
Well, what about bubble and squeak? Toad in the hole. How about faggots and gravy? You take the intestines of a cow, boil it down in cabbage water and turnip juice, and serve it with gravy extracted from the nostril of a lamb's caplet. Then you take an egg, fry it to the hardness of a frisbee, crumble it, and scatter it about the mess like the sand of time. For dessert, you have spotted dick. A lump of warm suet, dotted with raisins. The English conquered the world to escape their own cooking.
If the English hadn't invaded Ireland, we never would have had the potato famine, and we'd never have come to America. My God, there'd be no James Cagney, no Pat O'Brien, no Spencer Tracy, no Maria O'Hara, and no Milo O'Shea.
No McCourt.
Susie,
Thank you.
No Notre Dame. No fighting Irish.
No John McEnroe. No Ronald Reagan.
please, are you telling me about the English?
Yes. Off beyond the horizon were exotic places begging to be conquered. India, Africa, Arabia, Parsippany. Hindus, Bedouins, Zulus, healthy people, sound hearts, blood coursing freely through their arteries, tall, powerful warriors. But the English had an answer for such strength. Shiploads of spotted dick. The natives ate what was put before them. They gobbled up their spotted dick and raisins, and in no time at all, their arteries clogged with cholesterol. The mighty Zulu tribes keeled over with coronary. Cholesterol, Christianity, coronaries, civilization, England!
Sure, you want to know why England hasn't been invaded since 1066? Well, Germany invaded France in 1870, 1914, 1940. In 1940, England was on her knees. The Germans could have strolled in, and they didn't. Why not? Well, think about it. You're a German in occupied Paris. You have your escargot, your pâté, your fine old bottle of Bordeaux. Invade England for faggots and gravy, please.
Still, you have to admit, they did conquer the world. You can't begrudge them that.
Oh, who can't? At least they didn't discover America. They can't claim that.
And who did?
The Irish, of course.
And the honor of that great achievement goes to St. Brendan, Bishop of Clonfert in the 6th century. In 545 AD, he set sail off the coast of Kerry Bay, which bears his name, and after a difficult voyage, he landed on the shores of Virginia, where he preached the Gospels for 7 years. Then he returned to Ireland, founded several monasteries, obtained reinforcements for his missions, and set sail again for the New World. He's never heard of again.
Oscar Wilde said, "It is a vulgar error to assume that America was discovered. She was merely detected."
Get to the point.
You Irish can't seem to get correctly to the point. When an Englishman falls in love and proposes, he says, "Darling, I love you. Will you marry me?"
An Irishman says, Mary, would you like to be buried with my people?
Well, hold on a minute. The Irish get down to the point about quite a few things. could I?
Fighting.
Thousands of young Irishmen came to America in the red coats of the English army.
Mother of God, you're not saying that we fought with England against America.
Oh, listen to the music, woman. The best folk ballads of the Indian Wars, the American Revolution, the Plains Wars were Irish songs. They spoke volumes of the poor Irish lads forced by privations to become English mercenaries.
Well, Mrs. McGrath, the sergeant said, would you like to make a soldier out of your son Ted? With a scarlet coat and a big broad hat. Mrs. McGrath, would you like that? With a doo-la-la, 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 with a doo-la-la, 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 doo-la-la. Now, Mrs. McGrath lived by the seashore for the space of 7 long years or more. She saw a big ship sailing into the bay. Says, my son Ted, what you took her away with a doo-la-la, 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 with a doo-la-la, doo-la-la, doo-la-la. Well, Captain dear, where have you been? Have you been to the Mediterranean? Have you any news of my son Ted? Is the poor boy living or is he dead? With a doo-la-la, 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 with a doo-la-la, doo-la-la, doo-la-la. Well, up comes Ted without any legs, and in his place into wooden chains. She kissed him a dozen times or two, said, glory be to God, can this be you? With a doo-la-la, 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 with a doo-la-la, 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 doo-la-la.
Now, were you drunk or were you blind when you left your mighty lake behind? Or was it walking on the sea, a big fish ate your legs away?
Well, I wasn't drunk and I wasn't blind when I left me 2 fine legs behind. But a cannonball on the 5th of May tore me 2 fine legs from my knees away. With a doo-la-la, 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 with a doo-la-la, 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 doo-la-la.
Oh, Teddy, goodbye, the old widow cried. Your 2 fine legs were your mammy's pride. Them stumps of tree wouldn't do at all. Why didn't you run from the big cannonball?
With a doo-la-la, 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 with a doo-la-la, 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 doo-la-la.
Well, all foreign wars I do proclaim, between Don Juan and the King of Spain. Be Jesus and and they swept away through a child of mine.
With a doo-la-la, 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 with a doo-la-la, 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 with a doo-la-la, 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 with a doo-la-la,
I've heard it said, from the best authority, that the major part of the American army was composed of Irish. It was then courage and valor determined the contest. America was lost to us because of those damned Irish immigrants.
Well, that's a first.
We claim Winnie first. The first witch hanged in New England was
Irish.
The first doctor to remove an American appendix.
Irish.
Maker of the first American piano.
Irish.
First steamboat inventor.
Irish. First submarine.
Irish.
The first plot to poison George Washington.
Irish.
The first labor strikes.
The first draft flyer.
First slum in America. Irish.
First man ever start a fist fight on the floor of the United States Senate, James Shields. First man to leap from Flintridge.
The first Catholic in the White House.
The first OVO brought vasectomy.
The first what?
Ovulorectomy is the removal of the ovaries.
Mother of God.
People are going to think we're bragging.
Well, it's not easy being Irish. To wake up in the morning with that sinking feeling. Oh God, another day of faith in McCourt. Top of the morning, another day of poetry and charm and lyricism. Fondness for the drop. Tura, Laura, Laura. Unrelenting whimsicality. How are things in Glockamora? And how's your poor old Irish mother? I love the dear silver that shines in your hair, and the brow that's off-rolled and wrinkled with care. I kiss the dear fingers so toiled for me. Oh, God bless you and keep you, Mother McCreary.
Dreaming. Torture and hard scald and never satisfying dreaming. An Irishman's imagination never lets him alone. It never convinces him. But it makes him that he can't face reality, nor deal with, nor handle it, nor conquer it. He can only sneer at them that do. Say he's thinking, say he's working, say he's everything, except imagination. And imagination is such torture that you can't bear it without a whiskey. You nag and squabble at home because your wife's no angel, and she despises you because you're no hero.
Aye, but before our generation, the names of those who died for Ireland were the dearest names of all. Sarsfield, Wolfton, Lord Edward Fitzgerald, Robert Emmet. Many a young man and woman grew up dreaming of dying for Ireland, leaving behind a name immortalised in the country's memory. Dying for freedom, suffering for freedom. There's the great road to fame and renown, the sure way of having one's name remembered forever.
Sing on songs and stories, heroes only noun, the passing tales of glory that once was Dublin town. The haunting halls and houses, the haunting children's rhymes, that once was Dublin city in the as night declines, I'll remember Dublin city in the red wine.
No lot of father remembers Dublin.
I remember Dublin as dark and dramatic. The streets drifting with smoke and rain. I see it in my mind's eye in black and white. And the pubs and the cafes were thrilling because light and warmth spilled from them. The students moved like guerrilla fighters through the center of the city. They walked everywhere. They borrowed each other's coats, they lent each other books. They ate egg and onion sandwiches. Oh, with mint sauce. Oh. If they had any money, at 3 o'clock, potato cakes were on the menu at Bewley's. City people lived alone in cold bed-sitters that smelt of gas, with stained curtains and dripping bathrooms down lino-covered halls. But I remember Dublin as dark and dramatic.
That made me bitter, the gargoyles in the rain, 'cause Dublin keeps on changing, and nothing stays the same. My months are full of memories, too full to hold each heart. I'm part of what was Dublin in the red
whatsoever. There are two types of people in the world as far as psychoanalysis is concerned. The Irish and everybody else.
A learned American scholar once asked an old Irish woman if she believed in fairies.
I do not, but there.
There's a story that the first potato was brought to Ireland by an Englishman. Sir Walter Raleigh it was, and he had offered it to Queen Elizabeth.
What do you have to please me today?
I have a surprise for you.
What's that?
It's a tuber, Your Majesty, and you pardon the expression, some have said it's an aphrodisiac.
What's it called?
Why, it's called a potato, ma'am.
Ugh, what an ugly looking thing. Take it to the Irish. They'll like it.
So he took it to Ireland and planted it in the rich Irish soil. Did it take kindly? It did indeed. And people took kindly to the potato. It was very easy to grow, and it made a nice little drink called poachine. And didn't they have eaten and drinking in the noble spud? They did indeed. A man working in the fields would come home after a hard day's labor and eat a half stone of spuds at one sitting. 7 pounds! And he peeled them all with a fingernail, which he grew for that very purpose. There being a shortage of knives and forks.
But in the autumn of 1845, it was discovered that a disease had attacked the mighty Irish potato. The misery to come reared its ugly head.
Look about you and say what it is that doesn't foretell famine. Doesn't the dark, wet day, the rain, rain, rain foretell it? Doesn't the rotten crops and the unhealthy air foretell it? Doesn't the sky without a sun, the heavy clouds, the angry fire of the west foretell it? The earth is softened for the grave, and in the black cloud of heaven one may see the hearse rolling slowly along.
The Times of Dublin, 1845. The autumn is waning subtly and cheerfully for its country. It is a busy and hopeful time. The husbandman is merry at his toil because it has rich promise.
But the Boston Pilot, November 29th of the same year. In Ireland, matters look appalling. Famine, gaunt, horrible, destroying famine now seems impending.
In an exact and true sense, the famine was not a famine. The only failure was the potato crop, the food of the poor. While the Irish died of starvation and the parasitical diseases of malnutrition, the land produced sufficient food to sustain the population. But the carts rolled steadily eastward towards seaports laden with foodstuffs for England, through villages reeking with death.
Thousands of barrels of wheat, oats, barley, potato, and bread were exported to England during the famine years. Tierces of beef, pork, and bacon, hundredweights of butter, filled the holds of the outgoing ships. The Irish peasants had a saying, God Almighty sent the potato blight, but the English created a famine.
I lonely prison wall
Dear Sir, as magistrate, I thought it right, personally, to investigate several lamentable causes which had reached my attention, of the appalling state of misery to which part of the country had been reduced. I accordingly travelled to Skibbereen, and here's what I saw there. Upon reaching the spot, I was surprised to find the wretched hamlet deserted. I entered some of the hovels to ascertain the cause, and the scenes which presented themselves are that of which no tongue or pen could convey the slightest idea of. In the first, 6 famished and ghastly skeletons, to all appearances dead, were seen huddled in a corner on some filthy straw, their sole covered what appeared to be a ragged horse cloth. The wretched legs dangled about, naked above the knee. I approached with horror, and found by a low moaning, they were alive. They were in fever. 4 children, a woman, and what had once been a man.
In another case, decency would forbid what follows, but it must be told. My clothes were nearly torn off in the endeavour to escape from the pestilence of the throng around me, until my neckcloth was seized from behind with a grip that compelled me to turn. I was faced with a woman, an infant just born in her arms, and a filthy sack across her loins, the sole covering of herself and baby.
Charles Trevelyan, the British Treasury official in charge of the relief efforts in Ireland, said, "The great evil with which we must contend is not the physical evil of the famine, but the moral evil of the selfish, perverse, and turbulent character of the Irish people."
Same morning in December, police opened a house on the adjoining lands, which was observed shut for many days. Two frozen corpses were found, lying in the mud, half devoured by rats.
A woman, herself in a fever, was seen the same day to carry out the corpse of her child, a girl about 12, perfectly naked, and lying half covered there in a pile of stones. Within 500 yards of the cavalry station at Skibbereen, the dispensary doctor found 7 wretches lying unable to move under the same cloak. One had been dead many hours, but the others were unable to move either themselves or the corpse.
To relieve the great hunger, donations came from all over America, from Choctaw Indians and from African slaves on southern plantations. The cadets of West Point contributed $300. Irish laborers on the railroads gave 1 day's work, and contractors matched the sums.
The Jewish synagogue in New York took up a large collection. The New York State Legislature raised $1,000 among themselves.
Soldiers of the Mexican war front passed the hat and were joined by Mexican civilian populations in occupied towns. The town of Winchester, Virginia, announced a collection of 300 barrels of corn and 30 barrels of flour. Members in the National House and Senate chipped in $1,300.
The city of Cincinnati furnished 5,000 barrels of provisions. The railroads carried parcels and commodities marked bound for Ireland free, and the canals admitted foodstuffs destined for Ireland without toll.
Supplies sent from America were on a scale unparalleled in history. From Philadelphia alone, 8 vessels were sent with provisions. The states of Mississippi and Alabama contributed large consignments of Indian corn. Free storage was offered to any public carrier marked for Irish relief, and no public carrier accepted 1 penny for passage to Ireland.
But the famine still marched in triumph over Ireland.
Amid the horror, the living began to envy the dead, for they had ceased to suffer.
And with a callousness that would be impossible to surpass, English landlords remained in England unmoved, and sent their bailiffs to turn people out of house, levelling their cottages or setting them on fire, sending the tenants adrift without money or clothing, their mouths green-tinged from eating grass. The great statesman Daniel O'Connell's last speech in Parliament was a plaintive appeal for a dying people.
Ireland is in your hands. She is in your power. If you don't save her, she can't save herself. And I solemnly call upon you to recollect that I predict with sincerest conviction that 1/4 her population will perish unless you come to her relief.
A dark and terrible change was effected in the character of the Irish people. There was too much misery to bear. The unburied corpses, the pitiful pleadings of the hungry, the torture of the fever-stricken had finally ceased to arouse pity.
Oh, son, I loved my native land with energy and pride. Till the blight came over all my crops, my sheep, my cattle died. My rent and taxes were too high, I could not redeem, and that's the cruel reason why I left home still. Oh, Father dear, the day may come when an answer to your call. Each Irishman feeling stern shall bow ye one and all. I'll be the man to lead the band beneath the flag of green. When loud and high will raise the cry, remember Skibbereen.
The fountains of compassion had dried up, and hearts that once were generous and kind had lost the capacity to feel. By 1847, Daniel O'Connor's prediction had come true. 1/4 the population of Ireland was lost.
So, the men and women that God made mad, paddies, priests, prelates, prostitutes, papists, politicians, prelates, papists, mixed jockeys, narrowbacks, teens, harps, bog-trotters, narrowbacks bade farewell to the land of their youth, and set off for parts unknown.
They left Ireland by the thousand.
Tens of thousands.
To England.
Scotland.
Wales.
And above all, America.
I'm bidding farewell to the land of my youth and the home that I loved so well. And the mountains so grand round my own native land, I'm bidding them all farewell. With an aching heart I bid them adieu, for tomorrow I sail far away. O'er the raging foam, for to seek a home on the shores of the Mary Kay. So fare thee well, my darling Mary Ann, we sail at the break of day. O'er the raging foam, for to seek a home on the shores of the Mary Kay.
You there, boy. Did you come across from Dublin to Liverpool
I did.
upon the deck of a steamer bound for America?
Yes, sir.
There were 14 of you.
There were.
What was the name of the family?
Fitzgerald.
And when you were some time out, your people were washed away.
13 washed away, all but myself.
How'd you survive? Had you any food?
They gave me no drink but water, and the biscuit was too hard for me to bite.
You would not like to go to sea again.
No, sir, I would not. Not if I could help it. I never would.
If you were promised you reach America,
Oh, well, then I would go. If someone promised me I would reach America, yes, then I would try it.
a tear fell gently from her eye when last we parted from the shore. My bosom heaved many a sigh to think I might
a decent boy from Ireland, from the town of Bellingham. I want a situation, and I want it very bad. I see employment advertised, it's just the thing, says I, but the dirty small breed answers with no Irish need of
I am sorry to say that England is right about the lower class of Irish. They are brutal, base, cruel, cowards, and as insolent as base. My own theory is that St. Patrick's campaign against the snakes is a popish delusion. The snakes perish from biting the Irish people.
This from the diary of an aristocratic New Yorker. They are scarcely in the country a year before they pretend to be the equals of our born citizens. I should not object to their coming here, provided they are content to remain servants. The only condition, by the by, for which they are fit. But when they come here without a cent in their pocket, pretending to share in the same privileges as our oldest and most respectable citizens, well, it makes my blood boil with rage. And I should rather live among the natives of Cape of Good Hope, as in the United States, in which every Irishman thinks he's as good as myself.
I started off to find the house. I found it mighty soon. When I found the old chap seated, he was reading the Tribune. I told him what I came here for, and he enraged to fly. No, I says, you are a paddy, and no Irish need apply. Well, guess my gander rising, and I like to black his arm. To tell an Irish gentleman, no Irish need apply.
From the private diary of the mayor of New York. Teddy O'Flaherty votes. He has not been in this country 6 months. He has hair on his teeth, and he has never known an hour in civilized society. He's a pauper of the civilized world. To compare him with an intelligent African freedman would be an insult to the latter. The Irish fill our jailhouses, fill our poorhouses. Scratch a convict or a pauper, and you will find yourself tickling the skin of an Irish Catholic.
From the papers of a New York politician. Irish are the most ignorant and consequently the most obstinate white men in the world. And I have seen enough to satisfy me that, with few exceptions, ignorance and vice go together. And to my horror, these filthy Irishmen, strangers among us, decide the elections in the city of New York.
Sure, I've heard that in America, that always is the plan, that an Irishman is just as good as any other man. At home in hospitality, he never will deny. The stranger here never say no Irish need apply. But some black sheep are in the flock, and dirty lots is I. But a decent man would never like no Irish need apply.
French Catholics in Boston demanded to be buried with the Protestants rather than the Irish. Black people in the same city petitioned for their own cemetery, so they wouldn't have to be buried anywhere near the lowly Irish.
Wanted, an English or American woman that understands cooking and to assist generally in the work if wished. Also a girl to do chamber work. None need apply without a recommendation from their last position. Irish people need not apply.
Wanted, a woman to do general health work. English, German, Scotch. Any country or color, except for Irish.
Oh, an Irish or Welsh woman hasn't an equal. She runs better than other people. She drinks a bit, sings a bit all the day long, and her heart's like a shamrock, it sings a big song. The neighbors all listen to Mrs. McCleary, and now that a washwoman's
he denied it not, Mrs., for that he didn't drink what I gave him yesterday.
Mrs. Van Wyck then asked Bridget to broil a lobster. In an hour, cook came upstairs and told Mrs. Van Wyck that the butter was all used up. Mrs. Van Wyck said to Bridget, "Why, I gave you 2 pounds of butter only this morning." Whereupon Bridget answered,
I know, Mrs., but every time I set the dark officer down in front of the fire and buttered him up, he walked away, and now me and the whole kitchen floor is covered with butter. Oh, I couldn't stand it longer, so I pulled him in my took and gave him such a welting as he get Johnny Crook. He hollered, "He'll a murder," and to get away to try. Say next he'd never write again, no Irish he'd apply. Well, he made a big apology, I bid him say goodbye. Say next you want a beating, right, no Irish he'd apply.
When next you want a beating right, no Irish need apply.
But change is inevitable, and change it did. In 1841, Sam Goodrich wrote, "How gallantly indeed do Irish wit and cheerfulness and hospitality and patriotism ride upon the wreck of individual hopes and sparkle through the very waves of adversity."
Orestes Brownson in 1854, out of these narrow lanes, dirty streets, dense cellars, and suffocating garrets, will come forth some of the noblest sons of our country, whom she will delight to own and honor.
William Chambers in 1854, the Irish soon acquire the sentiment of self-respect common to the American character. They become more Americanized than the Americans.
So, here's to you as good as you are. Here's to me as bad as I am. As good as you are and as bad as I am, I'm as good as you are. As bad as I am.
Well, Edward, in America, it always is the plan that an Irishman is just as good as any other man.
And so it happened that in 1817, Irish workers began digging the Erie Canal. Within a year, there were 3,000 men digging, and the Irish had become indispensable.
I've got a mule and her name is Sal, 15 miles on the Erie Canal. She's a good old worker and a good old pal, 15 miles on the Erie Canal. We haul some barges in our day, filled with lumber, coal, and hay, and we know every inch of the way from Albany to Buffalo. Everybody down, 'cause we're going to a town, and you'll always know your neighbor, you'll always know your pal if you've ever navigated on the Erie Canal.
Take out any map of the United States and trace your finger along the route of any canal or railroad, and you'll be passing over the graves of thousands of Irishmen who died along the way. Go out and have a jog. We'll be back in 15 minutes. twins last night.
Yes and no.
Yeah, Josie. Did you hear? Mary and Jim got married in a bathtub. Yeah, it was a 2-ring ceremony.
Hey, George. Yeah, Jerry? I haven't spoken to my wife in 20 years. Why not? Didn't want to interrupt her.
I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy, a Yankee Doodle do or die. A real live nephew of my Uncle Sam, born on the 4th of July. I've got a Yankee Doodle sweetheart, she's my Yankee Doodle joy. Yankee Doodle went to London just to ride a pony. I am a Yankee Doodle boy. I've got a Yankee Doodle sweetheart, she's my Yankee Doodle joy. Yankee Doodle went to London just to ride a pony. I am a Yankee Doodle. Give my regards to old Broadway and tell them I'll be there long.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's Grant
Well, I've got rings on my fingers, bells on my toes, elephants to ride on like little Irish rose. So come to your neighbor the next Wednesday. Big Mistress Mambo Jumbo Jitterboo O'Shea.
Miss Nora Mays.
Has anybody here seen Kelly? Gay double Y. Anybody here seen Kelly? Have you seen him smile? Well, his hair is red, his eyes are blue, and he's Irish through and through. Has anybody here seen Kelly? Kelly from the Emerald Isle. Kelly from the Emerald.
Whisper of how I'm yearning to mingle with the old time throng.
Give my regards to old Broadway and tell them I'll be there ere long.
From 1840 to 1860, 1,700,000 men, women, and children entered the United States from Ireland.
When the Irish came to America, we thought that the streets would be paved with gold. But when we got here, not only were they not paved with gold, they weren't paved at all.
And furthermore, we were expected to pave them. We paved the sidewalks, the roads, the railway systems, and as you might remember, we played the leading role in the labor movement.
The building of the Great Union Pacific Railroad opened the West and the Far West to trade and settlement during the post-Civil War land rush. The thousands who made it built homes out of raw timber and fought off Indians, and they had to protect their families and their new lands.
In 1841, me corduroy breeches I put on. Me corduroy breeches I put on to work upon the railway, the railway. I'm weary of the railway. Poor Paddy works on the railway.
I was
Was working on the railway.
In 1843, I broke a shovel across my knee. I went to work for the company, just to work upon the railway. In Daniel O'Connor was still alive, I found myself more dead than alive from working on the railway.
I was
Was working on the railway.
In 1847, poor Patty was thinking of going to heaven. If he left one kid, he left 11 for working on the railway. The railway.
I'm weary of the railway. Poor Patty works on the railway. 1, 2, 3, cut them! Was working on the railway. Was working on the railway.
The Irish came to America to escape the famine, to escape the anguish.
Some came to escape the past.
We were ragged, rich, and diseased. We were angry, illiterate, ambitious.
We drank. We fought in all the wars. We got into politics in a big way. We quarreled with almost everybody.
There were two groups of people the Irish did not get along with, the blacks and the whites.
We drank. Oh Lord, we drank.
In Boston, nothing altered the Irish tradition of alcoholic indulgence. In fact, crowded conditions drove men out of their homes and into the pubs where they could meet with friends, speak in their native language, and forget about their terrible homesickness in the promised land.
Many Irish families sold gin as a sideline, without license, to cater to the demands of their countrymen.
I've been trying for many a year. I spent all my money on whiskey and gin. My daughters of Hollow are still my still. And I'll tell you what got it for $2 a beer. I'm a rambler, I'm a gambler, I'm a hungry, I'm home. And if you don't like me, then leave me alone. I'll live when I'm hungry, I'll drink when I fly. And the moonshine don't kill me, I'll drink till I die. I'm a rambler, I'm a gambler, I'm a long way from home. And if you don't like me, then leave me alone. I'll live when I'm hungry, I'll drink when I fly. And the moonshine don't kill me, I'll live till I die.
Why, nothing helped the man, but a pint of bitter and a song about home.
Aye. Give us a song about home, will you, lad?
I will. Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling. From glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and all the flowers are dying. 'Tis you, must go and I must bide. But come ye birds, and all my grave shall warm sweet peace. If you will bend and tell me that you love me, then I will sleep in peace until you come to me.
While peasant behavior in Ireland had been notoriously turbulent, Irish violence in the New World differed in both extent and quality from that of home.
The Irish fought about everything. We even fought over the great culinary question of the 20th century.
Who threw the overalls and Mrs. Murphy's Shannon? Nobody's one, so we shout all the louder. It's an Irish thing, it's true. I can lick them, take them through. The overalls and Mrs. Murphy's Shannon.
The Irish had a different way with death, one that often infuriated the Americans.
Tim Finnegan lived on Watling Street, a gentle Irish man, mighty God. He had a brogue so rich and sweet, and to rise in the world he carried a hod. Now Tim had a sort of tiddling way, with a drop of liquor for Tim was hard, and to help him now his work each week, a drop of craving every morn. What will you not answer your partner when the fire rock the ship? Isn't it the truth I told you? Lots of fun and Finnegan's way.
One morning Tim was rather full. His head was heavy, which made him shake. He fell off the ladder and broke his skull. So they carried him home, his corpse to wake. They wrapped him up in a nice clean sheet and laid him out on the bed with a dozen of partners at his feet and a gallon of whiskey at his head.
What will you not answer, partner, what the flirters want to shake? Isn't it the truth I told you? Lots of fun and Finnegan's way.
His friends assembled at the wake, and Mrs. Finnegan called for lunch. First she laid out tea and cake, then pipes and tobacco and whiskey punch. Then Biddy O'Brien began to cry. Such a decent corpse did ever you see. Arise in the morning, why did I shut your face and Billy McGee?
What will you not answer, partner, what the flirters want to shake? Isn't it the truth I told you? Lots of fun and Finnegan's way.
Well, Mickey Mulvaney raised his head as a gallon of whiskey flew. It missed and landed on the bed, and the whiskey scattered over Tim. Dad, you realize, see how he rises. Tim Finnegan rising from the dead, crying as he flashed around like blazing.
Oh, what the hell do you think I'm getting? How could you not answer, partner, what the flirters want to shake? Isn't it the truth I told you? Lots of fun and Finnegan's way. How could you not answer, partner, what the flirters want to shake? Isn't it the truth I told you? Lots of fun and Finnegan's way.
And then the wars came, and the wars overtook America.
At first, the Irish weren't sure they wanted to fight in the American Civil War. Daniel Emmett wrote, "Oh, I wish I was in the land of cotton. Old times there are not forgotten. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland." Then the government introduced the draft law. through which you could buy your way out of the army for $300. Only the rich could afford that. The Irish masses couldn't, and they resented a law that favored the rich.
July 11, 1863, 1,200 names were picked, most of them Irish. The brothers in the war had already suffered tremendous losses.
On the Monday morning following the publication of the first draft list, the draft riots began. Irish workingmen stayed away from their jobs and gathered in sullen crowds outside the draft centres or in vacant lots near Central Park. When the police, who themselves included a great number of Irish, under the leadership of Superintendent Kennedy, attempted to disperse the crowds, the men turned and fought. Kennedy was badly beaten.
Once the rioting began, it continued for 4 days. The mobs went from place to place, attacking the armory on Lexington Avenue and various private houses.
While some Irish were rioting in the streets, the Irish brigades were covering themselves with glory. The famous fighting 69th fought through the Peninsula Campaign. The First Battle of Bull Run, Antietam, Chancellorsville, Fredericksburg. Encompassed within the sickening tragedy of the Civil War was a particular desperate poignancy for the Irish. On both sides, green banners bearing the insignias of the harp and the shamrock, and the words Erin go bragh and Foch Ambalach were bespattered with Irish blood.
At Fredericksburg, General Thomas Marr's Irish Brigade, who wore green sprigs in their caps to celebrate their heritage, faced by chance a section of the line held by Colonel Robert McMillan's 24th Georgian Regiment. The Confederates recognized their fellow countrymen by the green emblems, and some even exclaimed, "What a pity! Here comes Marr's fellas!" The Georgians took aim and mowed down their fellow Irishmen. The air of the battle was drowned by the sounds of dying Irish voices, while the same Irish songs were sung on both sides.
On the night before Fredericksburg, 2 Irish regiments were encamped on opposite sides of the Rappahannock River. The song Ireland Boys Hooray was a favourite among the Irish immigrants in Canada and America. It could be heard on both sides the night before Fredericksburg.
The troops sang together across the river in the darkness.
The Canadian goods we left for one bright island road. It's the land we tread, but yet our hearts are not alone. And ere we leave the shafty snow of fates and walks of day, we'll toast to Ireland here, oh Ireland, Ireland boys hooray.
Ireland boys hooray, Ireland boys hooray, we'll toast to Ireland dear, oh Ireland, Ireland boys hooray.
General Robert A. Lee, on the conduct of the Irish Brigade at Fredericksburg, 1862. Never were men so brave. They ennobled their race by their splendid gallantry on that desperate occasion. Though thoroughly routed, they reaped a harvest of glory. Their brilliant, though hopeless assaults upon our lines excited the hearty applause of our officers and our men.
We've heard her faults 100 times, the new ones and the old, in songs and sermons, rants and rhymes and marks of 54. But take them all in great and small, and this we've got to say: we'll toast to Ireland, dear old Ireland, Ireland boys hooray.
Ireland boys hooray, Ireland boys hooray, we'll toast to Ireland dear, oh Ireland, Ireland boys hooray.
The Medal of Honor, the highest decoration award to the member of the American Armed Forces, was constituted by Abraham Lincoln in 1860. The 202 Irish-born recipients constitute the largest group of immigrants ever to receive this award.
We've seen the wedding and the wake, the patron and the fair, and the slim young friends, the dear old maids, the kindly Irish hair. And the Ballaroo we've heard to the thundering clear the way. We'll toast to Ireland, dear old Ireland, Ireland boys hooray. Ireland boys hooray, Ireland boys hooray. We'll toast to Ireland, dear old Ireland, Ireland boys hooray. Ireland boys hooray, Ireland boys hooray. We'll toast to Ireland, dear old Ireland, Ireland boys hooray.
life, especially politics, of which they seem to have a special gift. They soon dominated every big city machine and labor union.
The Molly Maguires entered the popular imagination as a ruthless band of criminals carrying out a reign of terror in the Pennsylvania coalfields. According to standard accounts, the Maguires, named after a heroic woman who resisted oppressive landlords in Ireland in the 18th century, were a secret society formed in Ireland and brought to the Americas in the 1850s. Some say they developed among the Pennsylvania coal miners as an offshoot of the ancient order of Hibernians, and the massive strike in 1875 is attributed to them, along with several accounts of violence, arson, and sabotage against mine owners, supervisors, and informers.
20 of the Mollies were convicted and executed of murder. 10 on one day, June 21st, 1877. Hereafter known in the coalfields as Black Thursday. By 1878, the society had moved into legend and was no more.
The men who died as Molly Maguire murderers were made martyrs of the American labor movement and precursors to the powerful United Mine Workers Union that came into existence some years later.
After Boss Tweed, who was of Scottish descent, Tammany Hall was run by Honest John Kelly, Richard Crocker, Charles Francis Murphy.
Political bosses handed out jobs.
Yeah.
They helped voters in trouble. They sent out turkeys on Christmas and Thanksgiving, and the fuel to cook them with. Out there were reformers who wanted to change everything, who accused the political bosses of corruption.
A lot of people are talking these days about Tammany men growing rich on graft. But does anybody think to draw the distinction between honest graft and dishonest graft? There's a world of difference between the two. Yes, many of our men have grown rich in politics. I have myself. I've made a great fortune in the game and I'm getting richer every day. But I've not gone in for dishonest graft. I may sum it all up by saying, I seen my opportunities and I took them.
Through centuries of division, violent civil wars, near total suppression of their language and culture, the soul and the pride of the Irish had not only survived but had flourished. Now the Irish-American character was coming into its own, and nobody delineated that character better than
George M. Cohan.
He could write as fast as he could dance. He rolled his eyes, he sang through his nose, he always carried a cane, and he never stood on stage next to anyone taller than himself.
He created a new type of musical show in which everyone talked at the top of their lungs and sang at the top of their voice.
He said he wrote for Joe Black, the guy with the $2 heart. He said he'd rather make one man laugh than 1,000 cry. Crying, he said, was a waste of time.
In 1939, 1939, President Franklin Roosevelt presented him with a Congressional Medal in recognition of the national value of his war song.
You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may you wave. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue, and there's never a boast or brag. But should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the grand old flag. Over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums drumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there.
How can one take the measure of Irish bravery and grace of spirit in America's wars?
At 7:55 on a bright Sunday morning in December of 1941, sailors at the Pearl Harbor Naval Base in Honolulu, Hawaii, awoke to what would prove to be an infamous day. The United States lost 2,344 men on that day. It took Congress only 27 hours to declare war against the Empire of Japan. Captain Colin P. Kelly was the first American to die for his country after the United States declared war on December 8, 1941.
The Irish were prominent on all fronts. In the European theater, U.S. forces fought against the nightmare of Adolf Hitler's rampage. And in the South Pacific, American flags were raised on the tiny atolls on the way to the final defeat of the Japanese in 1945.
In addition to fighting in the foxholes, many Irish were busy raising the morale of their fellows. From the Andrews sisters not sitting under the apple trees with anybody else but their boys on the front line, to the magnificent Kate Smith's God Bless America, to the quintessential Irishman,
Big Crosby, who hit the foxholes, often with his pal Bob Hope, and with a scantily clad starlet in tow, lifted the hearts of G.I. Joes everywhere with a touch of home and a promise. I'll be home for Christmas. You can plan on me. Please have snow and mistletoe and presents on the tree. Christmas Eve will find me where the light gleams. I'll be home for Christmas. If only it's my dream.
Briefly, or is it too late? Let us recount just a few of the names that have changed our planet. Changed utterly.
William Butler Yeats, Sean O'Casey, Oscar Wilde, George Bernard Shaw, Brendan Behan, Louis Sullivan, George O'Keeffe, and Roy
Maureen's O'Hara and O'Sullivan, Helen Hayes, the Kellys, Jeannie Grace, Spencer Tracy, Mickey Rooney, Henry Ford, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Billy the Kid, Muhammad Ali, oh yeah.
American presidents with a direct historical line to Ireland. Andrew Jackson, James K. Polk, James Buchanan, William McKinley, Chester Arthur, Woodrow Wilson, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, William Jefferson Clinton, and Barack Obama.
And John Fitzgerald Kennedy, born in Massachusetts in 1917. In Galway in June of 1963, the president invited his audience to the White House. If you come to America, come to the White House. And at the gate, tell them that you come from Galway. The word will be out. It will be Seat Mafaltra. 100,000 welcomes.
In the same year in County Wexford, he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to give you the impression that every member of my administration is Irish. It just seems that way."
That year he said, "I'll be back in the springtime."
In November of 1963, John F. Kennedy was assassinated. He never saw the springtime.
The drums and drums and drums and drums, a roll, a roll. The
music makers. We are the dreamers of dreams.
Scorcha!